You're listening to Mystical Science, the show that reveals the mysteries of the universe, so listeners can live more consciously connected.
Hello, everybody. This is Karen Elkins. I'm your host. This is Mystical Science, and our guest today is Marko Rodin. We're talking about vortex-based math and the divine hologram. And just to introduce you a bit to Marko. Marko and I have spent a lot of time together, and we're working on a special magazine that actually brings to light his work in a way so you haven't. He comes to his love and passion for math based on his faith and through a revelation he had. So let me just sort of give you a basic overview, and then we're going to ask him a really big question. So Marko Rodin's vortex-based math dodecaqubit is a divine algorithm that is a schematic of the universe. It reveals the pathways that all matter and energy take as it flows into the future from the quantum level up to a solar system to galaxies. Marko has discovered the underpinning geometry of the universe and the source of the decaying spin of the electron. In applications, it can be used in everything from zero-point energy, advanced propulsion systems, quantum computing, artificial intelligence, to DNA science. Marko and I are, as I said, co-creating the issue that we're doing together, evolving your understanding of technology to the areas of consciousness. Welcome, Marko.
Thank you.
So when Marko was 16, he had the epiphany that has revolutionized the way we think of the universe. Most of you may know of the Rodin coil, and it is, there's no place that most people who are in the new energy business, everybody knows the Rodin coil, and it has inspired a lot of breakthroughs and technologies that are changing the way we see our world. So when you were 16, you had a mystical moment. Marko, give us a clue of what happened in that changed your world and has changed the way we see our world.
Since childhood, I've been fascinated by the impact of sounds on the biological human tempo, and so I was researching intelligence and what would be the highest paradigm of consciousness. And to make a long story short, I realized that sound or harmonics also control intelligence and consciousness. And so I also then associated and made the connection that in every major religion, the name of God, which is stated to be created by the Word of God, was the source of creation and the most sacred, holy thing there is. And in all the major religions, their alphabet is also their counting system. So I decrypted the name of God, what's called the most great name of God, out of the Baha'i faith by applying the abjad numerical corresponding numbers. And I was able to, and then I applied it to electrical engineering, power generation, propulsion, quantum computers, microbiology, spirit over unity, and I was able to reverse engineer creation. I actually was able to define accurately perfection and unity, and I was able to create what's called a torus or a hypersphere, where it was scalable on a quantum level from micro to macro on any level. I was able to have a numerical lattice for the quantum world, which far exceeds anything in science and technology today.
The number system is not just one. There's a lot of nested paradigms within it that are actually circulating one within the other. And what I do have here, I do have some images that you guys will be privy to, along with the conversation. So at least you won't be blindsided. We also will have the magazine, so you guys will be able to go through it. So just so you know that. So it's important for you to understand what the Rodin coil and the system is. Tell us a little bit about, because then this will begin to explain the idea of 3, 6, and 9 that's fundamental to your mathematical system.
There's 2 images that you're sharing on the screen right now. One is the Torus, which was the schematic for the Rodin coil.
Mm-hmm.
And the other was the VW, or the mathematical fingerprint of God, which is the legend or blueprint. And essentially, anything it touches, any field of science, it transforms. It proves that numbers are real, that nature is expressing herself with numbers. And it pieces numbers together like a mosaic jigsaw puzzle, where it reveals literally the face of God and the transfiguration of the universe.
There was the part where you and I were working where I had one of those aha moments. And it was the part where we're talking about the torus, we're talking about the donut in the middle, where it's got the hole, the pinch point, the 0 point. And it was where everything is emanating from the center, and how everything does come from that spirit pushing out. And then as it pushes out, it is like that light. Those numbers are the hologram, they're the mirrors. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, the mirrors it's a faceted crystal, the Torus. Each tile, diamond quantum tile, is a plane that's aimed at the epicenter. And as spirit emanates, when it punctures the tile, it creates a rarefication and a shock wave. That's the beauty of vortex-based mathematics. Nothing comes close to it in its profound revealment of cascading shock waves of energy that shows momentum, kinetic energy, potential, and all the energy is being transferred from one number to another through the Torus skin, similar to a Newton's cradle that we have seen before, or like the example in a physics textbook when they show a drop of water creating waves. I use numbers in a way that have never been done before by Western modern civilization, by conventional academia. This knowledge has existed in societies and cultures and religions of the past, but was lost to mankind and was buried through the eons of time. But the actual knowledge has always existed. It's a part of creation. It's a part of reality. It's the wisdom of God. And so I was able to piece numbers back together, literally combine all the disassociate branches, differing branches of math together, from calculus to quantum mechanics to algebra to surface topology to geometry, sacred geometry. It's all one.
It is all one.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to take hold on one second. We're going to take a short break. But before we do, why don't you give the audience where they can find more about your work? What's your website or?
Well, it's decocubit.com, spelled DECOQUBIT, decocubit.com.
Awesome. We'll be right back in a few seconds.
Hello, everyone. This is Tonya Don Rekla, Executive Director of Superpower Experts, and we want to thank each of you for making Superpower Up the #1 podcast network for personal development and spiritual growth. Because people like you have the courage to say that mindfulness, healthy living, disrupting reality, the pursuit of consciousness, responsible entrepreneurship, and radical parenting matter, we now amass over 1 million downloads monthly in more than 90 countries. Our numbers keep growing because there are far more people willing to live divergently than mass media wants to acknowledge. For you, the change makers, the light bearers, the way showers, we say thank you. If you're ready to take the next step in your evolution, go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the Superpower Quiz. And as Neva Lee Rekla, our youngest podcaster, likes to remind us, remember, we all have superpowers and we can change the world.
Great. Hey, everybody, we're back. We're here with Marko Rodin, and we're here just really discussing the divine hologram and how he's discovered the schematic algorithm for our universe. Welcome back, Marko.
Hello.
Hello. So where we left off was basically the whole geometry of the universe. So the name of the magazine that we're doing is called A Sanctified Mirror in a Hologram Universe, the Divine Algorithm, the source of the origin of the unseen emanation of spirit as it streams through. One of the other things we were talking about when I had this epiphany looking at his work, it was how does it relate in a sense, and how can we relate to it as the eye of God, the all-seeing eye? Do you have a thought on that, Marko? Because we did a whole page on that, which is gorgeous.
The all-seeing eye of God is one vernacular way of saying omniscience or omnipotence, and literally, I have tapped into the all-seeing eye of God, and I figured out how to harness it. The all-seeing eye of God is how spirit emanates from the higher dimensional worlds into this world. It's, as you've illustrated in your artwork, a fountain. Spirit is irresistible, penetrates everything, is the source of all motion, vibration, and time. And I have found the pathway that spirit takes as it emanates. Spirit is unique in that it travels in a straight line. And in the world that we occupy, the physical, concrete, material, third dimension, everything is warped and processes by spirit. If you were to take spirit away, the universe would instantly become destitute and void and cease to exist. And so spirit is the ultimate work wheel that we can tap into. It is the source of the non-decaying spin of the electron. The beauty of it is that magnetism always responds to spirit by giving slippage and free play to it.
Does that align for the concept of free will?
The subject is lofty of consciousness, free will, human volition, absolute command, what our behest or pleasure is. It applies to it because the name of God, if a human being was to know the precise mystic intonation of the most great name of God and intonate it and always hold on to it and never let go of it, it is the source of divine guidance. It is the source of illumination. It is the source of communion with God. It is the apex of consciousness. It's the secret of he doth what he willeth, ordaineth what he pleaseth. to answer your question.
Thank you. You know, part of the words that we have and that relate to what you're talking about, you call it the aperture, the singularity, the nozzle, and the vortex, and from that comes, as you said, the fountain and the well. But it also reminds me the idea of the Rubik's cubes and God's chessboard as being sort of this jigsaw puzzle. Thoughts?
I have found the equation for that. It's palindrome 396693. 6 discrete numbers in that order. It's the fully dimensionalized wisdom of Tesla, where he said, if you knew the magnificence of the 3, 6, and 9, you would have a key to the universe. When the numbers are positioned and arrayed correctly, it is 396693. It is a palindrome formula for all of creation.
That's the yin and yang, and the male and female. That's the two sides. Is that correct?
There's a lot more to it, of course. That they're in synchronization, they're in phase, which is very critical.
You said something about how spirit, whoever controls the universe, it's magnetism. Explain that.
I didn't actually say that. I don't remember his name. The author of Dick Tracy, the comic strip, did a sidebar when Dick Tracy would be looking into his wristwatch recorder transmitter. He wrote on the sidebar, he said, he who controls magnetism controls the universe. And that may be on a physical level. It's a whole nother problem, solving man's emotional, mental, spiritual needs. But it is true that magnetism is harnessable, and it always comes together with spirit. Spirit's always at the center of the field. Spirit's a flux. Positive emanation creates negative draft counter space. The number 9 is spirit. The numbers 3 and 6 are the magnetic poles, and you'll see that in my symbol. 3 and 6 terminate, they end, and go in the reverse direction again back to the 9. And when 9's positive, 3 and 6 are both negative. When 9's negative, 3 and 6 are both positive. 9 is the control.
Interesting. You that also goes back into your mathematical scheme of the X, Y, and Z axis and the dimensionality of 3D.
It's it's an amazing accomplishment and discovery, because not only today, when the present understanding of the higher dimension, the 4th dimension and above, is a tesseract or a hypercube, which is very crude and primitive, if even fallacious. The number 9 represents the W axis. There's not only 3 axes, X, Y, and Z. There's actually a 4th axis, which is called the W axis, which is represented by the number 9 and is actually spirit, and it travels in a straight line. And the 9 being above on that symbol, the 0, because it's literally spirit coming from a higher dimension to our world, which is a lower, more primitive, cruder world. It's a contingent world we live in, the 3rd dimension. And spirit is omnidimensional. The beauty of vortex-based mathematics is it shows that all of the higher dimensions are compressed into one dimension. I far exceed present day hyperbolia of conjecture of mathematics, where they talk about multiple dimensions, 10th dimensions, 11th, 12th, and so on. They're all consolidated together to the higher dimensions in the 396, 693.
It's amazing. So you also talk about this being relative to the biological systems in, you call it biological integer lattice.
It's referred to as the Bioetheric Template or the morphogenetic field. It's essentially people misconstrue Darwinism and evolution. It's taught wrong in academia and the schools. Evolution is not based upon haphazard random trial and error. Evolution has a template that it follows, an all coherent intelligence is guiding evolution, and it's nested inside the major groove of DNA, inside in between the two backbones of DNA. There's a gap space. I call it the equal potential major groove, and it's a flux field, and it's always sensing and responding to the environment, and it's the source of life, and it's the invisible blueprint of life.
You talk about this as also being scalable.
We've done a lot of, you and I together, illustrations revealing the literal growth of it. It's something that has to be seen and witnessed to understand.
So we'll keep inviting them back to look at the magazine when we'll attach it to this issue and to this, this conversation, because we wouldn't want them to miss the absolute amazing way of actually witnessing it. I mean, it attaches itself to the power of 10 and the branching system that looks just like a torus and looks like it has the pinch in the middle, and it has a bilateral symmetry.
The bilateral symmetry, yeah, it has parity. That's because everything is being created from the primal point, which is on the axis. The whole thing is based upon the fact that there is such a thing as perfection, and it is scalable from micro to macro, and there is a template to creation in the universe, and I've discovered what it is.
Well, there's part of the structure that you think you and I really haven't touched as much on, so it's a good opportunity for us. It's called the spirit spires.
It's so more advanced than what the radio audience can fully follow or track. But there is a spirit as a clock, and it does have a phase change. And it does create what I refer to as micro underpinning nested vortices. And these vortices, if this was applied to technology, depending on what you use it for, if you were to make it into a spaceship, it could travel intergalactically. It could go anywhere. And through the underpinning nested vortices over the surface of the torus, you could actually navigate the ship using this energy. It's untrammelled power.
Well, it looks like the spires, that one of the things when you and I were working on and still are on the magazine. What's interesting is when Marko called me and we were deciding to do an article, which then turned into its own issue, which has been really quite fun. I asked him if he wanted to be in a mathematical issue or a spiritual issue, and he said, no, I'd rather be in the one with the spirit. And what I had started working on was the idea of domes of the world, because what I could see was in the domes there was always these mosaic and these beautiful structures. And what really struck me over the course of the time is there were domes that had triangular angled, which was one of the key things, Marko, that you said when people do the Rodin coil, which is what you're known for, is everybody's knocking off the coil and we're using it for all kinds of yummy things. It's the whole idea of the angles of it. But every time I kept looking at a different dome, whether it was from China or from the Middle East or from Europe, there was always a signature of God in the geometry of what Marko was actually talking about. That was the fun part. The sun in the middle, the triangular shapes, the mosaics. It was beautiful. But I do remember the one that we really struck on was the importance of the angle in the diamonds, because they were facets.
Everything's triangulated on the third dimension. It's actually referred to in physics as hexagon close packing or closet packing. It's a standard component of superconductivity and surface topology and underpinning nested vortices. And vortex-based mathematics combines all these different branches, such as surface topology, together, revealing how to make a reactionless drive. And a reactionless drive is a space power propulsion system that's unaffected by any load or weight that's put upon it. And so the prime number 3, which makes this triangulation 3 squared, the secret that nobody knows other than my students is that when you square a prime number, it makes a hypersphere and it makes a base counting system. Mathematics is missing the hole at the center of the circle, or the center of the vortex. A circle in higher dimensions actually becomes a torus or a hypersphere, which is like a dimpled flat apple at the top and bottom. Because of the hole in the center, the vortex well, everything implodes and explodes, compresses and decompresses, male and female, negative vortex to positive vortex, and they happen in conjunction. That hole is always generated when you square a prime number. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13 all make hyperspheres and base number counting systems. Base 10, base 26, base 50 all come from prime numbers squaring. And there are no base number counting systems in between them. Thus, hexadecimal, base 12, base 15 are all man-made contrivances that are false and do not work because they're not seamless.
Right. We have that in the magazine. We show the different. That's been quite the project. But it's important. You know, the other thing that when you talk about the repeating, the other thing that keeps repeating is the number 9. Everything counts back to 9.
Because it's from the prime 3 squared, which is the first true prime number. 1 and 2 are not, or 2 is not a prime number. 1 is unity and it's undefined. But now you're showing in that illustration the underpinning nested vortices, how spirits emanating, creating them. And in a torus, the underpinning nested vortices are staggered. Whereas in DNA, in microbiology, the underpinning nested vortices are aligned. The world boundary conditions will line up. And that's how biology and life controls mitosis and sister strand replication. In a torus, that went by having staggered underpinning nested vortices, it sustains itself, the torus, and it dissipates heat. This is all a thermal heat dissipation refrigerator. The hypersphere sustains and maintains itself through heat dissipation. And who would have ever dreamed or imagined? No one, for that matter, in our modern day era has the slightest notion that numbers are the result of heat.
Can you explain that?
Well, today, the present day understanding is that numbers are a man-made approximation of reality. It's that mathematics is man-made, and it's a contrivance that only approximates reality. Whereas vortex-based mathematics actually is the mathematics behind creation, and is universally always accurate, always correct, never wrong.
Well, that goes back, I think one way the audience could actually even understand that is the idea of the Fibonacci growth system, and how things, that's also part of the divine matrix, where we see it as part of the daisy, for example. But it is the nature of spin, it's the nature of how things unfold.
There's always a hole in the center. So in pi today, which is used for all of man-made, engineering, it is wrong. It is not 3.1. It is not an endless, non-repeating decimal. It is not something that you can round off or approximate. That's just introducing more man-made errors. When you have an endless, non-repeating decimal, you've just broken one of the cardinal laws of all mathematics. And it's by that violation, you're thrown into a error mode, which is what an endless, non-repeating decimal is. Once you reintroduce the hole back into the center of the vortex, which occurs by spin array and creates equilibrium, you can never go through the hole. The hole is defined as an aperture. You go around the hole, which is along the lip, and that's why it's an eye, or literally God's all-seeing eye. And so you have to invert and come out the other side, have to go around many times in spires in the form of a star, and that defines a toroidal winding, except that the fields produced in a Rodin coil are poloidal, not toroidal. And poloidal fields are the secret for a sustained fusion reaction. You can't do it with toroidal coils. And so nothing begins, zero is from zero on a number line. Zero is not a part of any multiplication series. So zero is not on a number line. It's not 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 replaces 0 because a circle is an unbroken circuit. And in the Rodin coil, it shows it as a Mobius, and it's represented by the 6 numbers 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, which is the binary code, which was thought to be infinite by conventional science. It's actually a bounded infinity. It does not go in a straight line, the binary code, or for that matter, everything warps and precesses on the third dimension. And it's a Mobius circuit, the binary code. So 1, 2, 4, 8, 16 equals 7, 32 equals 5, 64 equals 10 is 1. You're back. You return to the beginning again. So 64 doubles equals 128 equals 11 is 2. The pattern resumes. 128 doubled equals 256 equals 13 equals 4. 512 equals 8. 1024 equals 7. There's only 6 numbers. Infinity, it's a bounded infinity. It's a Mobius. It's 124875, 124875, 124875.
Now, in case you didn't remember that for the audience, it is in the magazine. So at least you can, but it shows the brilliance of his understanding of the mathematics of what you're doing, Marko. It's remarkable. And yeah, it really is. So
the beauty of it is that for every binary code that moves forward, you have to have another binary code that's counter-rotating in the opposite direction. And it creates a mirror image of itself that's spooning. It's a reflection. And once you know that it always comes in pairs, the binary code, once you have the ability using vortex-based mathematics to create a surface topology over the torus skin, you're able to create a decocubit, which is the hologram, which is the ultimate supercomputer.
And with that said, because a part of what when you and I were talking, I said, well, that must be that each one of those triangles must be like a mirror, must be like a diamond, and therefore reflective. And that's where when we talk about the hologram and our universe basically being a reflected mirror, and a hologram is something that's a registration of light, which goes back to the ancient traditions, basically calling it Akasha, a record of light. So in this living matrix, as you call it also, it's very fluid, super, what is it, Marko? Super fluid?
Superconductivity is the same as superfluidity.
That's it. It was something that it's always you getting different reflections moving, basically like the Rubik's cube, but it's still a flux field, so it allows for some. It's not rigid. So there was some part of that that's not broken, so it can never be broken.
Well, the reason that the general public hasn't read my peer review, I'm about to put it at my on my YouTube channel, which is linked to through decocubit.com. And you can't have the skin of the torus in mathematics. It can't be ripped or torn. It has to be seamless. If you use a different base system that's not generated from a prime, it will create an aberration. The beauty of vortex-based mathematics is the torus number map is that it has no noise. There is no friction. There's no resistance. There's no random collisions. It's perfect phase transition change harmonically. And it's the natural pathway that all energy takes as it flows into the future. I've literally have the gears of the universe.
When I think of, I've looked at a lot of the new energy stuff, the part that seems to baffle or the ones who've made it is the idea of where is that phase change? Because a phase change is critical to going from one dimension to the other and transferring energy. So to me, that's where technology is having watched somebody doing a heating and cooling system. The problem was the phase change and getting it just right so that you could go from within the liquid, solids, and gases from one phase to another within some sort of harmonic transition.
The Rodin coil is a schematic for the perfect energy device. It has no iron core. Ultimately, it can be made out of any material, and it can be screen printed. It can be made out of a plasma. The tens of thousands of Rodin coils that are on YouTube today are all variations of the thing.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, typically everyone has run with it, and they do their own take on it, put their own name on it, and apply it to their own interests. And that can happen, and I allow it to happen because I've never patented or copyrighted anything, because in this day and age, you can't, in the field of over unity or free energy, patent anything. And the government usurps it anyway. They skim off the top with patents, so it's futile.
Yeah, I'm going to say this. Marko is one person who has never sold out, never will sell out. And it's not, whenever you see a coil, you always know it's a Rodin coil the way it is, whether they've used it or not used it. So your work is out there in a huge way, making a huge difference all over the world. So with that, we're going to close the show. And what I'm going to say, invite people to subscribe to Marko's YouTube channel. Is that right, Marko? Tell them one more time where to find you.
DecoCubit.
You better spell that one. Spell DecoCubit. You know I would need that like 10 times.
DecoQubit.
Okay. And then Marko's with me on ScienceToSageMagazine.com coming soon. He's been in many, many issues. We've been friends for a long time. He has got the wickedest sense of humor. And has always got a good movie clip for any mood. He's just, he's been a blessing. He's been a friend. And I completely enjoy him. So with this show, for sure, we'll tag in the magazine. If not, go to ScienceToSageMagazine.com, and you will find where you can explore more with myself and Marko. Again, you've been listening to Marko Rodin. You know where to find him. You know where to find me. And together, we're going to bring you something that's quite spectacular. So, Marko, thank you so much for being on the show. He doesn't do these anymore, so we've been very gifted to have the superhuman. Everybody goes, is that the real Marko Rodin? And it's like, you bet we got him right here. So, Marko, thank you so much for welcoming me and saying yes to the show. And thank you ever so much.
I will pinch myself in the butt to see if I am real.
You do that. Much love to you. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Are you ready to discover your superpowers? Go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the superpower quiz today.